3 seconds. That's all it took. Not the speech, not the headlines, not even the photos the palace wanted everyone to focus on. It was that tiny moment on campus this week when Princess Leonor stepped out of the car, adjusted her blazer's sleeve, looked across the crowd for half a second, then immediately lowered her eyes before smiling again. Most people ignored it, but online, people replayed it over and over. Because something about that moment didn't feel rehearsed. It felt heavy, and honestly, the more I watched the footage, the more I started thinking this entire, perfect future queen, narrative the media keeps selling us might be hiding something much more complicated underneath. Because body language never lies for long. Especially not in 2026. We live in an era where audiences analyze facial expressions the same way sports fans analyze slow-motion replays. Every pause becomes evidence. Every glance becomes a theory. And when it comes to Princess Leonor, people aren't just watching anymore. They're decoding her. And I think the palace underestimated how emotionally invested people have become in her story. Now compare that to the British royals for a second. While Prince William and Kate Middleton still operate with that polished, never let them see the pressure formula, Leonor's public image feels completely different lately. More exposed, more human, more fragile, honestly. And weirdly, that may be exactly why people can't stop watching her. Because perfection doesn't build loyalty anymore. Vulnerability does. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. And here's what I keep coming back to. Why did that tiny campus interaction suddenly feel bigger than the actual event itself? That's the real question, because officially, everything was normal. Another academic appearance. Another carefully managed royal outing. Another set of photos showing Spain's future queen looking disciplined and composed. But then the internet did what the internet always does. People slowed the footage down. They noticed Leonor repeatedly touching her hands together before speaking. They noticed the quick shoulder tension when cameras got closer. They noticed how she relaxed instantly whenever students spoke to her naturally, but stiffened the moment official photographers repositioned themselves. That difference matters a lot. And before somebody says, well, everybody gets nervous, yes, obviously. But this goes deeper than nerves. I think we're watching the collision between two versions of Leonor happening in real time. The private young woman, and the national symbol she's being trained to become. And honestly, that tension is starting to show physically. Now this is where I need to say something a little controversial. I actually think the Spanish monarchy may be benefiting from these moments more than they admit publicly. Not because Leonor looks uncomfortable, but because discomfort feels real. That's the uncomfortable truth about modern public image culture. People trust visible pressure more than polished perfection now. It's why audiences connect more deeply with creators who show exhaustion, frustration, vulnerability, not just flawless branding. Even Mr. Beast figured this out years ago. Viewers don't become emotionally attached to untouchable figures anymore. They attach themselves to people who appear to be carrying something difficult. That's exactly what's happening with Leonor. And whether the palace planned it or not, it's changing her image completely. Because think about how different the conversation around her was 2 years ago. Back then, discussions were mostly formal. Future queen, royal protocol, education, ceremonies, constitutional role. Very institutional, very distant. But now, people talk about her emotionally. They ask, is she okay? Does she actually want this? Why does she seem more tense lately? Is the pressure becoming too much? That shift is massive. And personally, I think it's one of the biggest transformations in European royal storytelling right now. Because Leonor is no longer being viewed only as royalty. She's becoming a character audiences emotionally follow. That's dangerous for the palace in some ways, but incredibly powerful in others. Now let's talk specifically about the campus body language everyone keeps debating. The moment that stood out to me most wasn't even the nervous gestures. It was the contrast. Whenever Leonor interacted spontaneously with students, her posture softened immediately. Her smile became uneven, in a good way, like a real person reacting naturally instead of a trained royal expression. Her shoulders dropped slightly, she leaned forward when listening. But the second official attention returned, everything tightened again. The smile became symmetrical, the posture straightened, the emotional guard went back up. And I don't think that's accidental. I think that's training colliding with instinct. Honestly, I found that fascinating to watch because it reveals something most palace coverage hides. Leonor may actually be trying to protect pieces of her real personality from being fully absorbed by the institution around her. That's my hot take. Not rebellion exactly. More like resistance through small human moments. And those moments matter because audiences feel them instantly, even subconsciously. You know what this reminds me of? Actors during massive franchise tours. At first they sound polished and media trained. But after months of pressure, little authentic cracks start appearing. Tiny unscripted expressions, exhausted smiles, awkward pauses, and ironically, fans usually love them more because of it. That's where Leonor's image is heading now. Not toward untouchable perfection, toward emotional relatability, and that completely changes the monarchy's long-term relationship with younger audiences. Now obviously, there's another side to this conversation too. There's a risk people are overanalyzing everything she does. That happens constantly online now. We've become a culture obsessed with decoding micro-expressions like amateur psychologists. Sometimes a tired glance is literally just a tired glance. But even if some interpretations go too far, the larger trend still matters. People no longer see Leonor as emotionally unreachable. That wall is breaking, and I honestly don't think the Spanish monarchy fully understands yet how powerful, and risky, that shift could become. Because once audiences feel emotionally connected to a royal figure, expectations change immediately. Suddenly people don't just want appearances. They want honesty, emotion, signs of humanity, visible struggle. That's a completely different psychological contract than older monarchies operated under. And here's where I think Spain is quietly moving ahead of some other royal institutions. While parts of the British system still rely heavily on mystery and controlled distance, Spain seems to be allowing, intentionally or unintentionally, more emotional visibility around Leonor. Not dramatic confessions, not oversharing, just enough visible tension for people to project their own feelings onto her. That's modern image building, and yes, it's risky. Because emotional connection creates emotional expectations. The more people feel protective of Leonor, the more intensely they'll react to future controversies, mistakes, rumors, or signs of burnout. That pressure can become suffocating fast. Especially for someone her age. Honestly, sometimes I watch these campus clips and think people forget. There's still a real young woman underneath the symbolism. A young woman trying to navigate friendships, public expectations, cameras, military pressure, academic pressure, royal duty, all while millions of strangers dissect the way she crosses her arms for clues about her mental state. That's insane when you really think about it. And maybe that's why this latest footage hit differently. Because for a second, viewers stopped seeing Princess Leonor. They saw somebody trying very hard to hold herself together in public. That changes the emotional tone of the entire story. And I think King Felipe understands that better than he lets on publicly. Because if you look closely, the monarchy hasn't tried very aggressively to shut down these discussions. They could have flooded the media cycle with stronger official narratives, cleaner photo opportunities, more controlled appearances. Instead, they've allowed the ambiguity to breathe. Which makes me think the palace may actually recognize the value of emotional realism now. Not total transparency, but realism, enough for people to feel connected. Enough for people to keep watching. And that's the deeper reason this campus body language story exploded online. It was never really about crossed arms or nervous gestures. It was about recognition. People recognized pressure. People recognized exhaustion. People recognized the strange feeling of trying to appear composed while carrying expectations nobody around you can fully understand. That feeling is universal, and once audiences emotionally recognize themselves inside a royal figure, the monarchy stops feeling distant. It starts feeling personal. That's the hidden meaning behind Leonor's body language. Not weakness, not scandal, not royal crisis. Transformation. The transformation of a future queen from symbol into somebody people genuinely feel emotionally invested in watching survive this pressure-filled modern world.